What we're going to talk about today is plant communication, how, what I do, and some steps that you can take so that you can start feeling your communication from the plants. So I have this question about how is that we receive communication from the plants. And you know, the thing is that it's primarily through intuition, and your intuition rides on your senses, okay? So, and the thing is that everybody is wired differently, okay? So you need to know how it is that you perceive your intuition. Like, how does your intuition register? Do you smell? Do you see? Do you have just a general knowing? Do you have instant knowings? Do things come to you in dreams? Do answers come to you in the morning? It's really each of our jobs to really learn how it is that we perceive our information. So the thing is that, you know, we're learning a lot about the brain. I took a class in 1986 on biofeedback, and I learned about the brain waves. And we've discovered more brain waves since then. But the thing is that what a little bit of what we know is that the earth and the plants, they're vibrating at around, it's called hertz now, Hertz. But when I learned about it, it was called brain waves per second, like how many waves per second. If they hook you up to a machine and you look at that machine and this is a second long, how many waves happen in that second, right? Okay, so we have different waves. So delta, which is sleep, your waves are like 2 to 4 waves per second, okay? Then you have theta, which is a deep meditative state where the waves happen at between 4 and 7 seconds. 4 and 7 waves per minute. Then you have alpha, where the waves go 8 to 15 seconds, waves per second. Then you have beta, which is like around 13 to 35. And your brain is never just in one state. And then there's, when I learned about it, it was like anything higher than 30 was stress. But now there's a gamma wave that's like, that they've discovered that's like 35 to 100, right? Okay, and so we can operate at alpha and stress like all day long, but it's when you drop down into the alpha waves or the theta waves, when you slow your brain waves down per second into alpha or beta, is when you start to resonate. You know, everything is energy, right? And every energy has a frequency. And like the forest frequency and the plant frequency operates more around 7, more around the theta to alpha state, right? So that's why, you know, you hear about forest bathing, and you hear about how all the healing that is being really scientifically proven when you take a walk in the forest. Because basically when you start to entrain and get on the same wavelength as the forest, your brain waves slow down, your energy relaxes, and your body has more energy for healing instead of stress, right? And so, you know, a lot of people call this meditation or prayer, and really, you know, I really don't care what it's called, because, you know, a lot of people, they get tripped up. They don't want to meditate, or they think they can't meditate. It's really about how do you slow your brain waves down, okay? And it's when you can slow your brain waves down and get them down to about 7, which is when you're in like a very peaceful, relaxed state. That's when you start to entrain or have the same vibrational frequency as the plants and the trees and the forest. So when you can slow yourself down and get yourself into that state, that's the state where you start to be able to, like, again, you're on more of an energetic vibration that the plants are running their energy at. And so there's more likelihood of communication and receiving information and receiving communication. So let me know if that makes sense to you. So the big question is, how do we get there? How do I get there? So there are literally thousands of ways to slow your brain waves down. I mean, that's what all the different meditation techniques are. Prayer does that. You know, piddling, if you're just ever piddle around the house, not like doing your to-do list, but you piddle in the garden, or you just kind of dawdle and you're not really thinking about anything, you're kind of going from one thing to the next, that slows your brain waves down. There's so many breathing techniques. There's a really good website called Heart Math, HeartMath, Heart Math. And there's a lot of really great techniques there where you can use biofeedback. But really, you already know what it is. I mean, what is it that gets you to that state where you feel peaceful? Where your mind relaxes and your mind's not like, go, 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 I got to do this, I got to do that, right? Which I run at that state, all the time. I have to consciously slow my brain waves down, relax, and just breathe in the beauty of the earth. And that's the place where you can start to perceive and receive information from the earth, from the plants, from the trees, from the forest, okay? Because again, everything is energy. Everything that's energy vibrates at a certain frequency. And when we get locked into stress, we don't perceive the creatures and the animals and the plants that vibrate at a lower frequency, right? So like when you go to the beach or when you're in warm water, your body, that's another thing that really helps the body to relax, right? Is different sounds. Different people relax to different sounds. How is it that you lower your brain waves and relax? That's really the key. And then once you do relax, how is it that you perceive? Okay, how do you perceive? Do you, so this is, you might not know this right away. So once you can kind of get yourself into an alpha state, basically lowering your brain waves, right? Then it's like you can start to ask questions and you can see how questions come to you. Do they come right away? Do you have an instant sense of knowing? Do you hear things? Do you see things? Do you smell things? And it's not like you just ask a question and boom, it just comes to you. Some people it comes right away, but it's a conversation, and so when you get information from the earth or from the plants, then it's like, you want to check it out. Is it true? Is it right for me? You just don't get like, oh, eat this plant. I'm going to, no, you have to check it out. Then you come back into your waking state and you check it out. But there's two things here. First of all, you want to consciously understand how it is you get yourself into an alpha state. How is it that you lower your brain waves, slow your brain waves down, okay? And you want to cultivate that. Okay, so again, some people, they call it meditation. For some people, for me, meditation happens, I can slow my brain waves down easier through movement. So walking is much easier than sitting for me. So when I walk in the woods or I walk through the meadow or I walk in the forest, I can really slow my brain waves down and relax and feel that peace. Okay, so number one, you're looking for that state of peace, of feeling peaceful and like your brain isn't chattering, and you like to, some people use breath work. And sometimes, movement is good. Sometimes there's all these different breathing techniques where you breathe in slowly for 6 breaths and then you breathe out slowly for 6 breaths. But basically for me, like all the breathing techniques is kind of like occupying your mind. Or one of my teachers, Vicki Noble, used to say, you have to give your mind a cookie, like something to chomp on so that you can slow down and not be thinking. Okay. So how do you give your mind a cookie? How do you slow yourself down and get yourself into the vibrational frequency of the earth? Okay. Number one. So you want to cultivate that so that you can get to that state easier and more often. Then number 2, how do you perceive? So how is it, we're all wired differently. And again, intuition rides on your senses. So we are wired to perceive. So how do you perceive? Okay. How do you know something that you didn't read in a book? Right? What are your experiences in your life where you knew something but nobody told you? Is it when you have the goosebumps, or the hair stands up on the back of your skin? Or do you hear voices, or do you have a sense, or do you have a sense of knowing? Do you just know? How do you perceive? How are you wired? How do your senses perceive intuitive and information from the plants that are vibrating at around this 7 hertz, right? So 2 things here. How do you get yourself down? And then what are your ways of perception? And this is, this is our task, is to understand this. And you may not know it right away. You may not, it may be something that you're working on, and it takes time. And so I would love to hear how it is that you, number one, how do you get yourself down to an alpha state? How do you lower your brain waves so that you can start to perceive information from the plants? So if you have a technique, type it in the chat. Like, how do you take a power nap? Do you go for a walk? Do you have a particular meditation? So again, you want to get yourself down to lowering your brain waves, relaxing, getting to that peaceful state. And then it's in that state that you can start to perceive things outside of you, the plants and the trees and the forest. So how do you do it? And then how do you perceive? How is your intuition wired? I would love to hear, like, how something in your life where nobody told you, but you just knew, like you knew it was the truth. So I get, I'm the kind, my hair stands up on the back of my neck. I get chills when I know that I have communication. I get a lot of chills. How do you know that how does your intuition speak to you, right? So, and it may just be like a message or a sound, or some people get songs, some people get questions. So you can go with a specific question and maybe just be led to something, or just start thinking about something. I remember, something like 30 years ago, I remember the first time I went harvesting for St. John's wort with my teacher Robin from Olala Farms, and I was young. It was really the first time I ever harvested St. John's wort. And I was like, well, what is it good for? And what does it do? And how do you da-da-da-da-da? And she was just like, let's just harvest the St. John's wort and see what comes to mind. What do you start thinking about? Just relax, Cammie. You can't learn it all right now. Relax. Let's just enjoy the sunshine in this field and this beautiful summer day and these beautiful flowers. And we're going to harvest and, let ourselves just kind of get into that relaxed state. And then we're going to just let our conversation go wherever it goes, or we're going to see what comes to mind. Right? And then whatever comes to mind kind of gives you an idea of a next step or a next idea. And so, we don't know everything that the plants are doing. They're still evolving. We're still evolving. There's lots of new things that the plants are doing, and it's not all written down. And it really is up to us to develop this skill to be able to lower our brainwaves so that we can get at the vibrational frequency at which the plants operate. And be able to do that, just at will, right? Can you just activate that? And then how fast can you get there, right? And then to just start really tuning into how do we perceive. So a lot of times for me, what happens is I'll ask a question and it won't come right away. But in the morning when I first wake up, it'll come to me through my subconscious mind, right? So yeah, so how do you get down, lower your brain waves, and then how do you perceive through your intuition? This is our task when we're working with communication with plants. So, some people are just like, I can't, so, I do workshops in this. I've helped people that just are, like from scientific backgrounds, just be like, no way, I don't hear the plants don't communicate. And after I get done with them, they have experiences where they feel the communication from the plants and from the earth. And again, it's, the plants have been here longer than we have, and they have a lot of information. They have a lot of wisdom about how to live on this planet. And they're right outside our door, right? They're right outside our door. We can stay in our quick mind, in our beta and stress states and never really slow down enough to listen to them or to ask. Or we can live on this earth and live this life, really cultivating our ability to perceive their joy and beauty, right? And one of the things that helps to, it's just such a perfect marriage, because one of the ways that our brain waves slow down is when we feel gratitude and when we really acknowledge and recognize beauty. So the plants are just set up with, they're in harmony with our nervous system to help us to get to that place, right? When you see, if you can really, that saying, stop and smell the flowers, even just acknowledging the beauty of the scent or the flower itself slows your brain waves down. And, if this is new for you, or you just think like, oh my gosh, what is she talking about? What you can do is you can even just, if you garden, in your garden, you can set the intention to receive information from your garden. You can take 10 deep breaths and then ask a question. Okay, so you sit and you just take 10, 7 to 10 slow deep breaths. All right, and then you ask a question of your garden. Where should I plant this, or what should I, just ask a question, and it can be a question about anything. And then just forget about it. And then work in your garden, or work with your garden, or work with your plants, and do whatever you're going to do with your plants, and see what happens. And then even watch your dreams, and also see what you wake up with in the morning. Okay. So I have a whole book on communicating with the plants, but these are two things that you do to start. This is how you start. You have this consciousness of that we need to lower our brain waves, slow our brain waves to put ourselves into the frequency that the plants are. And then we have to really start paying attention to this incredible instrument. We are an instrument that is wired to perceive. Right? So then we have to start really paying attention to how do we receive the communication? And you may not know, and it may not come right away, but you start asking questions and then see what comes. See if you feel it, see if you have an instant knowing, see if you figure it out tomorrow. Sometimes what happens is your communication over the next 24 hours, somebody that you meet will say the answer to you. But you have to open up to that we are all connected and everything vibrates at different frequencies. And if you can just tune into that dial, the plant radio station dial at around 7 hertz. And when we're just, stress, and running our brain waves at 30, 40, 50, and we never stop it, then it's much harder to hear nature. Right? And maybe you get down there and you don't hear anything. Well, try to get down there every day. Try to lower your brain waves and get down to that peaceful place every day, several times a day even, and ask questions before you go to that space. Go out into nature, maybe direct the question to a piece of the forest or to a particular plant, and just start to see what happens. So if you have any way that the communication comes for you, I would love to hear. And so today we've talked about one of the first 2 things that you start working with to increase your plant communication capacities. And so it is something, again, that we are totally wired for. That what happens is for many of us, it wasn't reflected or mirrored when we were children. But if you look at children, they're dialed in all the time. But if they go and they try to show somebody and none of the adults meet them or match them or reflect the connection, then pretty soon it starts to shut down. And that's what's happened to most of us. But hang out with a 2-year-old, they'll take you right in. they'll slow your brain waves down and take you right into that communication, right? So if we can get back to that space of awe and really slowing ourselves down and then paying attention to how we perceive intuition, those are Those are really important gateways for activating and increasing your plant communication abilities. There's all kinds of tricks. I'm going to show you another one. It's going to look kind of weird. But if you sit and you look like, okay, I know this is going to look weird on the, but I love you. I want to show you this one. There's just there's 1,000 tricks to slow down our brain waves. And one of them is to like look here with both your eyes. Okay, ready? You look like this and you just keep looking, you keep looking, you keep looking, you keep looking until your eyes hurt. You keep doing that until you've got strain, and then you just close your eyes. And that's a really good way to get you into that state. So today we've been talking about two things. How do you slow your brain waves down so that your vibrational frequency matches the vibrational frequency of the earth? And we know now that that's when we get into an alpha or theta state. And then once you get into that state, how do you perceive? What is your, again, the intuition rides on the senses. So what is your sensory perception of how you perceive? And how much were you how much have you been validated or invalidated in your life about perceiving non-human communication? And so if it wasn't permitted or wasn't accepted or acknowledged in your family, then it's, might be a little bit more difficult to access, right? Or maybe you're even shamed, or people, my students over the years, they talk about how they felt communication from the plants when they were younger, but someone told them they were crazy. Again, we've talked about slowing our brain waves down to the vibrational frequency of the earth, and then really starting to pay attention to how do you perceive? How does your intuition speak to you? Everybody's different. And so one thing to do is you want to go back and look back in your lifetime and notice different times where you knew something, where you absolutely knew, and how did you know? How did it register in your body? Okay?